Number 1 says complete the table below for more intervals of water levels of the cone discussed in class. Then graph the data on the coordinate plane. In class, we went over the exercise and filled in part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 7.5. So you will need to copy those over from your classwork. Then we are going to do the halves that are left together on here. So we have a cone that has a radius of 3 and a height of 7.5. The height is going to be told to us from the table, but we are going to have to calculate the radius for the small part. So if the height was 1.5, we're going to compare it to the original height, which is 7.5, and we are going to figure out what the unknown radius is for this small part based on the entire radius of the whole. The way that we are going to solve is we will cross multiply to create an equation. X times 7.5 is 7.5x, and 3 times 1.5 is 4.5. Then, to solve for x, we're going to divide both sides by 7.5, and x comes out to 0.6. That doesn't tell us the volume or the time. So we're going to use the volume formula to calculate what the volume is. We have 1/3 times pi. Our radius is 0.6. And our height was 1.5. In our calculator, we're going to do 0.6 times 0.6 to square them. Then we're going to multiply that answer by 1.5. And then we're going to multiply that by 3.14 for pi. And finally, we're going to divide by 3 for that 1/3 piece, leaving us with a volume of 0.5652. But this is looking for time, and it told us in the problem that the cone was being filled at a specific rate, which is 6 cubic feet per minute. So we're going to divide our volume by 6 to figure out how many minutes it's going to take. And it says it's going to take 0.094 minutes. So put that in your table for 1.5. Now we're going to do the same thing again, but we're going to change the height from 1.5 to 2.5. So again, set up your ratio. Our unknown radius and our known radius for the whole, our new height and our height for the whole. Cross multiply gives us 7.5x. 3 times 2.5 gives us 7.5. When we divide by 7.5 on both sides, we see that x is equal to 1. That is our radius. So we're going to use 1/3 pi times 1 squared, and our height that we used was 2.5. In our calculator, 1 squared, 1 times 1, times 2.5 for the height, times 3.14 for the pi, and then divide by 3 for the 1/3. That gives us a volume of 2.616 repeating. And then we need to divide that by 6 to figure out how many minutes it's going to take. And it says it's going to take 0.436 minutes. So in the 2.5 section, 0.436. Now for 3.5. The small height is 3.5. The original height was 7.5. The small radius is x. The original radius was 3. Cross multiply. X times 7.5 is 7.5x. 3 times 3.5 is 10.5. And then we'll divide both sides by 7.5 to solve for x, which gives us 1.4. Over here, the 1.4 is used for our radius. And our height is 3.5. In your calculator, 1.4 times 1.4 to square it, times 3.5 for the height, times 3.14 for pi, and then divide by 3 for the third. Gives us a volume of 7.18013 repeating. But to figure out how much time that's going to take, we divide by 6. And that says it's going to take 1.197 minutes. Now follow the same process to complete 4.5, 5.5, and 6.5. All you're going to need to do is replace the height in here with the height from the table. And then you'll follow the same steps all the way through using your new radius over here in your formula.